everybody, it's Ann with Art on the Creek. Welcome to my channel. We are in my home studio in Parker, Colorado. And this week I asked you guys to vote for which you wanted to look at first. Either the Charvin water-soluble pastels or these Marie's watercolors. And you chose these. So we're going to play with the Charvins today and see what we can come up with. Are you ready? Let's get to it. I just want to give you a slice of my real life here. This is what it looks like when you come home from vacation. I just kind of dumped everything on my desk. So let me get this cleaned up and then we can take a look at these, the Charvin pastels. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about what I'm using here to swatch these out. This is the Painter's Diary, and I'll put links in the description. They will all be affiliate links, and everything, if you decide to shop from those links, it'll be no additional cost to you, but it will help my channel because I will earn a small commission from those clicks and purchases, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that, by the way. That really means a lot to me because if you decide to subscribe, like, leave a comment, share any of my videos, that certainly helps my channel. And every time you interact with my channel in that way or become a member of my channel, all of that revenue goes directly back to you through these videos because I use every penny of it, purchase things like this to review for you. So Charvin Paris, they are a company that's been around for quite a long time, at least since the 1800s, and they started off with oils. Let me pull up their website here. This company offers oils, gouache, watercolor, and these pastels. I mean, they have everything. They even have smocks, easels, anything that you would need in your art studio. Charvin has it, although in the United States, I don't know how widely they're distributed. Let me talk about the packaging real quickly here. I like the sleeve on the outside. The craft sleeve is very nice. It helps keep the box sealed, which is good for pastels because you want them to have very little movement. I like that little divot in the side of the box because it allows you to take out the top tray. There's a little foam liner under here to protect it from jostling and breaking the pastels. Now I have used this set, so some of them are broken. Don't let that fool you there. Let me just get this paper out of here. And there is the remaining 24. So this is a set of 48. And to my knowledge, this is all they make. I have not been able to find a whole lot of information about these particular pastels themselves. I will tell you that they are a little more gritty and grainy than any other pastel I have ever used. They are very, very unique. But look at these beautiful colors. Let's get them swatched out. So this will give you a little bit of an idea about what I mean about it's kind of hard to find information on these. So for instance, on the back of the box, we've got the colors that are included in here. They're all color number only. One big, huge plus is that the light fastness ratings are excellent and good, 4 stars or 3 stars. But they're only sold by color number. I don't know if they're sold individually. Like I said, this set is the only one I've ever been able to find here in the United States. So it doesn't mean I've really looked thoroughly though. So if you know of any other way to purchase these, let us know in the comments. Share that information because someone might be interested. The thing that I love about this box is the color. However, it makes it so it's very hard to see the clarity of these swatches. So let's get busy. Let's do some actual swatching. You might have to zoom in to see this, but I will zoom in later so that you can kind of get a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about here. The texture of the pigment that comes off of these sticks is incredibly thick. The granules are big. It's like it's not fine ground. It's very, very scratchy. So if you have any sound or texture aversions, then I would walk away from this product and don't look back. There's plenty of others out there that are on the market that you would equally like, or excuse me, like even maybe better because it wouldn't have that sound. It doesn't bother me, however, you're aware of it. You're very aware of it. And when you're applying the pigment to the paper, to whatever you're working on, there is a definite feel. There's a definite grittiness to these. And if that's a big turnoff to you, then make note of that because this may not be the right product for you. Now, I've definitely used this set, as I've said, and you know, they may not be in the original order that I put them in. In fact, I think one pink and that two purples should probably trade places, but you know what? We're just going to go with what we've got here. Set of 48, and each page here has 35 little boxes, so we're going to be able to do part of this. And then I will get a brush and we'll get this wet and see how they blend. Now I'm going to slow this part down to regular speed here because what I want to talk about is the brush that I'm using. This is just a Meeden paintbrush. These are pretty nice little paintbrushes for working with gouache. And that's kind of where I would put these, sorta, not really. We'll get into that as well here. But what my point with this brush is that you want to use a nylon filament, something that's going to give you some good spring back, either nylon or Tacklon, something that's a little more firm. You don't want to use your good sable or squirrel watercolor brush for this because it's just too soft. It just won't get a good blend for you. Let me zoom in a little bit here and you can kind of see how the water is blending on these. I'm just going to, on the top row, I'm going to kind of just place the water on the pile of powder there, and you can see it dissolves it pretty immediately. One thing that I've really had to watch with these is the water itself gets very dirty very quickly. I don't know what the deal is with that. It could be the pigment binder filler ratio, whatever they've got going on in the makeup of these, but your water gets much dirtier much faster than it would, say, if you were using neocolors or gouache or watercolor, anything like that. You can do a lot of regular watercolor techniques with these. You can add water to things, put in some nice cauliflower blooms, you can spread things out, you can do very thin washes. You'll notice here that the pigment lines are not dissolving. Let's speed up these swatches for just a little bit and then we'll talk a little bit about those pigment lines. Before I speed this up though, let's zoom in for just a minute and you can really see these pigment lines where I've placed it down, and you can see the size of these granules. It's significant. It's really pretty big. So we're placing water on top of it, and you can see you get kind of a milky transparency to the pigment that goes down. It's not like watercolor. It's really not like gouache. It's not like Neocolor 2. It's really not like anything. It's really its own animal. But it definitely has its uses. So we're just kind of tapping the water down on here, and I want you to see just how much pigment line is left. Now we'll speed this up again as we continue to go through the swatching. The colors are really vibrant. They're fun. You have a lot of nice choices. There's a big variety of greens, yellows. You even get two purples, which I think is pretty cool. Now here's why I think that this nylon filament, man-made filament brush is so important. These man-made filaments are just a little stiffer. They just have a little bit more spring to them. And because of that tension, you're able to dissolve the pigment a little bit better. Can you see how on these next couple of swatches here, now there you can really see those pigment lines underneath. Now let's take this brush and let's just kind of swirl it around to kind of try and pick those up the best we can. It will do some bit of dissolving. It's not going to get rid of them completely on this particular one. On some of the pigments it does. On some of them it really does dissolve it quite well. But you can really see that by using that man-made filament brush, you've got more of a resistance, and it's just easier to get rid of those pigment lines. And I'm so sorry that third box there was kind of out of frame. So let's pull this out a bit and we'll show you again. Can you see the row above that we were just zoomed in on? The pigment lines, the initial application of those pigment lines are very visible. And when we take the time to really get in there with this brush and kind of swirl it around and just kind of work that pigment a little bit more, you can lessen those pigment lines. Now that is true of most water-soluble pigments that you can use. You can do this with water-soluble markers or let's see what else, the Neocolor 2, any kind of watercolor pencil. If you really want to get rid of those lines, using a brush that has a little firmer filament would be helpful to you. So that's a good tip for you, something to keep in mind. Some of it depends on the pigment too, because some of these you can see really do almost dissolve completely, and others just simply don't. So let's speed this process up again and you can see the rest of it swatched through to completion. For a set of 48, this one really has a good color range. I'll definitely give it high points for that. Look at these flesh tones that are here, and these are just 3 of the choices. There's more on the next page, so let's move over to that and I will show those to you. We'll go through the same process here as we're applying these beautiful browns. They have a great range of earth tones too. I really do like the colors in this set. If your pastel breaks, by the way, don't worry about it, because really all you need is an edge. You can use a flat edge, you can use a corner, you can use the broken end there. So any shape that you have of a pastel will work. They do have a tendency to break when they're soft pastels. Don't sweat it. It's totally still usable, and it shouldn't affect your work at all. And finishing up the swatching here, you can see there's a great range of grays as well. I mean, there's not a lot, but there's more than one, which is pretty good in a set of 48, I think. And they also include a very nice Payne's gray. The black is nice and rich and dark. I like that. And here's kind of the Payne's gray. It's like a storm cloud, I guess I should say. But look at that range of skin tones. I mean, this is really a decent little set as far as the colors that you're given. Now that I've got that all dry, let's move on, and I'm just going to use the back of one of these pages here that we swatched on to show you a little bit more, because that's only one way that you can use these. They're so versatile. What I want to show you now is a little bit of color mixing. So since these are a pigment stick, you should be able to mix them like you would watercolors, and that's very true. You certainly can. Let's get a red here. This is kind of a nice little, almost a carmine, I don't know. I'm just going to get the brush wet and paint with it, creating a little puddle here in this palette. And the texture of this, the pigment, the liquefied pigment that comes off is really very interesting. It's kind of like if you were to do this with a watercolor pencil. It's very thick. As it comes off of here, you can kind of see how thick it is here coming off in the way that it coats the porcelain. Whoops, sorry. Let me think about what I'm doing here. Here we go. You can kind of see how thick and rich that is. And I'm going to do a freeze frame here. If you can see on the bottom ridge of that center well of the palette, if you look closely, you can really see those heavy particles that are still there. So it looks like it's mixed really well, but the particles inside are still pretty present. It's not, the liquid mixture doesn't feel gritty, but it will definitely dry with a gritty texture. So having troubles with the yellow here, let me get some clean yellow going, and then we'll add some blue to our palette. I've sped this portion up as well, so you can kind of see the yellow generate pretty quickly there, and then we'll go ahead and do the same thing with the blue. There we go. Now we've got our 3 primaries, and the colors mix very easily. The thing that I'm having a little bit of frustration with right here is trying to get a clean spot of yellow. Let's go ahead and mix them up. You can see you get some really clean mixes with a beautiful orange that is like a skin color orange. It's very nice. Very natural, kind of a readiness to it. Of course, that's the yellow and the red that I've chosen here. But the purple is nice and crisp and clear. The green is crisp and clear. Let's drop some water in there and see what happens with that. As I bring this up to the camera, look how big the particles are on the edge there. I'll do another freeze frame for you. Right there. Can you see on the bottom of that watermark where the blue and the green begin to mix how big those particles are on the edge? You can kind of see it on the purple here too, and where it mixes with the red. The sediment that is in these is really big, comparatively speaking, to any other art media you may have used before. So that's something to know and be aware of. Here's the wet end of this pigment stick. Let me just dip it in the water again. And you can use these wet and get some really bold, fun lines. And then you can blend with your finger. There's so many different ways that you can use these. So you can see for abstract art applications, these would really be phenomenal. In fact, I think that is my favorite. Spoiler, that's my favorite application to use these for, is abstract. You can use them like regular pastels, and I'm just going to blend this dry here on the paper. Now, this is 100% cotton watercolor paper, and by using your finger to blend, you can just push the pigment into the paper, but you see you still have the pigment lines, so it's not going to blend as smoothly and seamlessly as some of your other pastels. Honestly, I think that these really fit very, very well if you use them as creatively as possible and as freely as possible. I'm sure that it is possible to make some very fine detailed art with these. I found that to be a bit of a challenge. My favorite way to play with these is to make abstract art, because they just have this unique quality of the way that they blend. You can make soft blends here. Look how soft that transition is from yellow to green. You can blend that right on the paper. And then this blending down here is kind of off camera, so let me fast forward just a little bit. Let's take a closer look at this little doodle page that we've been working on. And again, this is on 100% cotton watercolor paper. Doesn't this look like particles that have dried in a puddle of water? I mean, it almost reminds me, we just took a trip to the southeast and the pollen is crazy. It almost reminds me of how the pollen dries in the street after the rain, if that's something that you've ever seen. It's just that the particles are so big. The sediment really is apparent here. The soft blends, the yellow and green on the right, you can definitely see. And in that rainbow blend, what I did with that was I blended it dry first. So in other words, I just used my finger and then I blended with water. Let's see how stable these are. And they are not. You can see with the paper towel that just by rubbing over any of this that is blended, see, you're going to get, I don't know if you can see that one there, but it's a little bit tan from the mix of everything. Here's the red that we did with the gutting it wet first and then blending it. And you can see it smudged the surface and really picked it up. And now let's go over this rainbow blend here. And this was a combination of dry blends and wet blends. And you can see you just get a mess. And that did really take off quite a bit of pigment off the paper. So definitely, if you're going to use these, use a fixative after your work is complete, whether you've blended it with water or not. And any pastel fixative will work. Well, let's see how these work as an art medium. Now, we know that they're fun to play with and fun to swatch, but are they fun to paint with? I am a pretty avid pastel painter, and these gave me a little bit of a challenge. I am going to do a little boat here on a shore with some beautiful tropical waters. The boat's kind of on blocks, but the problem that I had with these was not in just using them, but it's the size of the pigment granules. The particles are just so big that it became a little bit intrusive when it came time to blend. I'm going to let you listen to how scratchy these are. Can you hear that? Blending them with your finger is fine. They blend just fine. But there it is again. I just want you guys to have a really good idea of what you're getting into with these. So since these are water soluble, I felt compelled to use watercolor paper on them, or with them rather. That's not entirely necessary, and I'm thinking that it may not be the best paper to use, but I'm torn because when I blend these, when you do blend these rather, you're going to need to use a fairly significant amount of water. So I didn't want to use a pastel paper. These are unique. I'm going to go with that, and I mean that in a very kind way. They're fun to use, but they're a little bit frustrating with the size of the pigment particles. I just found it to be very scratchy. Not a very comfortable medium to use. I really enjoy using soft pastels. I don't mind getting my fingers dirty. I like blending. I like all of the features of soft pastels. But you can see on the block here when I was putting that under the boat, the amount of dust that comes up is just phenomenal. It's really, really astounding. And my work area is truly filthy. I do like blending them with water though. And in this case, with this particular scene, leaving the pigment lines worked out just fine because I was able to get some really awesome texture in the sand and in the boat too. I really think that all of it, the water, the boat, the sand, everything ended up really beautifully textured. I didn't dislike this project, but I felt like it was a struggle because of the size of those pigment particles. If you have used these and you've got some extra tips and tricks, mention it in the comments below. Don't keep that information all to yourself, because I will be the first to admit that I certainly could stand to play with these a little bit more and learn more from them. I really did enjoy getting this complete. However, I found so many things that I felt were hurdles that were a little bit frustrating. The white, for instance, is more of a foggy gray. I'm trying to put back some highlights in here that I lost, and I ended up trying a Prismacolor and then a pastel pencil, and nothing was working. So I just kind of decided to give that up and just continue along with what I was doing. And that right there, when you saw the painting leave the scene, that was when I was tapping it off in the trash can. And the amount of powder that comes up is, again, truly astounding. Here you can see when I'm blending it with water, I am getting down to the paper in some places. But then when it dries, you can see it come back up to that to its pastel pigment form. I really think I filled the tooth of the paper here because right now that last portion of the shadow was just not working correctly. Would I call these pastels? I would honestly call them more chalk. They really felt like chalk. Because to me, soft pastels don't. They're more creamy, and these just don't have that element to it. Will I use them again? Probably. I would want to try them on some other papers to see what it looks like to blend these with water on other papers. I'm not sure that this is the media for me. I think I will stick with my soft pastels. If you guys have used these Charvin water-soluble pastels, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you're interested in trying them out, they're not that expensive. So take a look down below and check out some of the links I've got down there. And I hope you guys are having a really fun weekend this weekend. We'll see you next time. Bye now.